Hello, welcome back. So it's been quite an interesting couple of months here, but thank you to everyone for tuning in once again. Sorry that we were unable to do the live stream last month, but it has been a very busy couple of weeks for us here at Wildlife Aid. And to be honest, what we wanted to do initially was just start off with a little summation of what we managed to do last year, and of course that is only possible thanks to you guys. So we just want to say a huge thank you for making all of this possible.
Well guys, that was 2021. Let's see what 2022 brings. I'm a bit worried about the camera setup tonight because Laurie looks in full Technicolor and he's got me a grey colour, which obviously means I've got 1 foot in the grave at least. He rather hopes I've got 2 feet in the grave, to be honest, I think. But no, 2021 was busy.
You're under just the lights of your office, and
I know.
I'll be honest, I'm under this snazzy actual light.
He has all the posh stuff, I get just an office light above me. So yeah, 2021 was active and busy and interesting. Despite COVID, we were cracking on. We had no breaks at all, and we actually had more patients during the COVID times than before. Now COVID restrictions in this country are lifting actually on Thursday, tomorrow. We'll see what the rest brings. We're still staying quite COVIDed up, as it were, because we want to protect our volunteers, we want to protect our staff, we don't want people going off with COVID, so we're being very careful. So we shall continue with our COVID restrictions for now. But 2022 is just started, and I think it's going to be an early start to this year. I think we've already had our first baby Robin in, which I think is still with us, I think, isn't it, as far as I know?
He is, yeah. And what we'd often get at this time of year, even when we get the youngsters, are really young birds. So what we usually call hatchlings, so ones that have just hatched from the egg, right up until nestlings, where they're in the nest but they're not able to go out. The robin we've had at the moment is right on the edge of what we call a fledgling. So it's doing really well, very advanced for where it is, and we are, I'll be honest, a little worried considering how far along that is, that everything is going to have got earlier and earlier this year, and what we think of as our busiest season and what we know in terms of where things are in that season will completely change. So we've had our first robin. We already know of several other centres that have had young badgers. Sadly, I think they were very underdeveloped, the ones that have appeared.
Badgers this time of year are literally just born. I mean, within days of being born, and as far as I'm aware, there's no badgers that have made it so far. I think I know of at least 4, and sadly they've all died. There is a centre which already had fox cub in, so that's the beginning of the fox cub. So I dare say before too long we'll get them. But for anybody who's listening, especially in the UK, if you do find a young fox cub, recognise it, because everybody thinks they're kittens or puppies or whatever. They are a very deep chocolate brown, usually have a tiny little white tip on the tail, which is a bit of a telltale sign.
Very cute.
But if you do see them, and you have to hand them, please put gloves on and rub them in soil or something first, just in case we can get them back. Because our whole aim, if we get these in, is to find out where they've come from and get them back to mum. So that's our first port of call. So if you get one, give us a ring before you bring it in, guys. Don't just bring it straight in. Give us a ring. We'll talk you through. We'll learn the history. We'll see if we can get it back if we can. Otherwise, if it comes to us, yes, it stands a great chance of going back out into the wild. I don't know how many we released last year. I think it was something above 60, wasn't it, Laurie?
It was. I think we had more than 70 that came in last year. Yeah.
So lots of fox cubs. We've still got some hedgehogs in. They'll be going out as soon as the weather gets warmer. We're still developing 20 acres, which we'll talk a little bit about later on. So
by 20 acres, he means the wildlife
the new
centre.
site. The new
20
wildlife
acres is kind of the internal name for it.
That's what we called it back in 2014. We just bought 12 acres, then we bought 7 acres, and it actually added up to 20 acres exactly. So that's why we called it 20 acres. So that we'll talk about later on. But this year, yeah, it's going to be busy. I hope people are still just as vigilant. I think during COVID, people got out and appreciated the beauty of our wildlife, and I hope that doesn't die. I don't think it will. I think people, now they've seen it all happening out there, they will be more conscious of it and hopefully more respectful of it and more helpful to it. So let's hope 2022 proves to be a great year. Laurie, over to you.
Yes, so in terms of patients, as I said before, it's been a very, very busy couple of months here at Wildlife Aid, and it just hasn't stopped. Usually we would refer to the winter as what we call our downtime, so we're able to do repairs, rebuild pens, sort things out, do general maintenance, all of the things that we can only do if the pens are empty. But unfortunately, they haven't been, and for the vast majority of the winter, they've been full of one species over anything else, and that is foxes. Now the foxes that we've had in generally fall into one of 2 camps, and the first one is these guys. So this is a fox that came in with mange. So if you haven't heard of mange before, mange is effectively, it's caused by a parasitic mite called Sarcoptes scabiei, which burrows under the skin of the fox, causes intense itching. They itch that quite a lot. It's that itching that then results in the fur loss and pressure sores and wounds, and leaves them open to secondary infections as well, which tends to be the things that end up fatal if they go too far. But luckily we are actually able to get them back if we catch them early enough. So this fox actually now looks like this, so an awful lot better. We need to keep them here, especially over the winter, to make sure that their, what we call the guard hairs, so their base coat, can grow back to make sure that they're nice and warm before they go out. But this one is very, very shortly able to head back to the wild. And we have several others in as well, with various degrees. So this one, as you can see, is quite severe. There's a lot of mange around the face, around the muzzle, around the ears. And as it progresses, it can actually get to the point that it will close the eyes entirely, and they'll be unable to open them and see and hunt, which is horrible. But this one is also doing quite well. And then the other fox with mange that we've had recently, which proved quite an interesting case, is this little guy. So he came in with mange, as the others would, but unfortunately that quickly developed into a secondary condition known as entropion. So entropion is usually a genetic condition, and it's where the eyelids actually roll back. It can be either the top or the bottom eyelid, and they'll roll back into the eye. They can cause a lot of damage and discomfort. It's really uncomfortable. Most of the time, if you get that in, it is genetic, and with wildlife rehabilitation, it's a bit of a taboo to release anything with a genetic abnormality, because obviously that will then be passed on to future generations. But luckily for this guy, he actually developed entropion, was seen to develop entropion as a result of his mange. So we were able to treat it in the same way that you would with a cat or a dog or anything like that. We did surgery. One of our wonderful vets called Katie did a little incision down the bottom, pulled everything back down, and this fox, within a matter of weeks, looked absolutely amazing. So you can see his eyes are beautiful and open there, and once we'd waited long enough for the mange to be treated and his coat to grow back, it ended up looking probably one of the finest specimens of foxes we've seen in the past couple of weeks, and he is now back in the wild. And I believe he's already trying to start a family, which is always fantastic news. But we've had an awful lot of those guys. The other thing we've had with foxes is, of course, RTAs. So RTA stands for Road Traffic Accident. This guy is probably the most recent one we've got. You can see the wounds to his muzzle. He was hit by a car, left in the road. He'd been hit so hard he'd actually vomited all over the road, which takes quite an impact. Got him back in. He had a bit of a head tilt, was showing neurological signs. Had obviously taken quite a blow and was in shock. Luckily, he's doing really, really well. He's now moved up into our outside fox runs. Is able to move around perfectly and sleeps in the cutest little ball in his bark pit. So we'll try and get an update photo of him for you guys over on the main social media channels, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, things like that. But we've seen an awful lot of foxes. Luckily, most of them can go back. Unfortunately, some of them are a little too far gone. But I'm not sure if it's just us or whether other rescue centres are seeing this huge spike in fox numbers. So if you are from another wildlife rescue, I know a couple of others tend to watch this, please leave us a comment. Be interesting to see if you've got the same high fox numbers that we do at the moment.
I think this is the first year we've ever had so many foxes over the winter. I don't know how many we've had in total, but I think it's up in the 50s, isn't it, over the winter, maybe even more.
Oh yeah, easily. Yeah.
Normally our pens are empty.
Single pen has been full.
Yeah. Normally our pens are empty in the winter, which is why we can do the refurbishment and rebuild everything, because foxes tend to eat our pens away at a rate of knots. We had a fox the other day who overnight managed to devour basically the whole pen. So big pieces of 2x2 had just vanished. There was stuff everywhere, and Jacob was in there the next day hammering and doing all sorts of things to get that pen ready to be used again. So it's been busy for us. It'd be interesting to see if other people had the same problem. But we, it's going to be, I think it will be a busy year. Hopefully it'll be a busy year, because I love being busy. I get I get withdrawal symptoms. If we don't do a rescue for a couple of days, I start to get very twitchy, and Laurie, that's why I get entropion actually. Laurie comes and thumps me in the eye to shut me up. And I get this sort of curled in eyelids where he's put his fist straight into my eyeball, and it really hurts. But he just laughs, because he's like that, Laurie. He's like that.
I'm really cruel.
He is very cruel. So let's see where we go.
Deborah has asked on Facebook, just whilst we're talking about the foxes, can all foxes that come in be inoculated against mange, or is it something that can only be treated whilst they have mange?
We tend to treat foxes that have mange with several drugs, one of them being Brevecto, and that gets rid of the mange for them. We don't like inoculating wildlife, because they're going to go back out into the wild. They're never going to get that inoculation again, and we don't want to take things back into the wildlife kingdom, which they get here, out there. So it doesn't work. We tend not to disturb more than we have to. So we deal with what we've got, and we let that animal go back out in a good shape, but it will then live like all the other foxes, because they don't queue up like the COVID queues we had here to get their injections and get their vaccinations. It's
also mange, because it is caused by a mite. It's not something that can be actually vaccinated against. It's in the same way that you might get a tick or you might get a flea bite or anything like that. It just happens to be that they've been in contact with another mangy animal. It can actually live on, I believe it can live on grass stems for about 7 days or something.
It can live a while, can't it?
It can live a long time. So if there's a fox that's passed through and they pass through afterwards, they can often pick it up. It's highly, highly contagious. But because it is caused by mite, you can't actually inoculate against it. You have to treat and release. Usually a fox will get mange if they're immunocompromised in some degree.
I like immunocompressed. I won't let you forget that, Laurie.
Yeah.
I won't let you forget that one. Laurie very seldom makes mistakes, so Laurie himself is immunocompressed, which is a new term for
flying
wildlife
otters.
care.
It's the 2022 version.
That's it.
But they tend to only let it get hold if they are immunocompromised. So obviously when you have a fox with mange, you have to look for these secondary conditions, make sure they're not particularly run down or anything else that could have exacerbated the mange. Because usually if they're in the early stages, they can deal with really minor bits of mange by themselves, but obviously if it's severe, they do need medication, because it's unfortunately a very, very nasty way to go.
Brevecto is probably one of the best cures for mange, but you can do that with your dogs, so your dogs don't get mange, because they get all their worming treatments and their flea treatments every year, so they get it's not inoculation, but they get protected against it. As I say, foxes when they go back out can't be, because they don't queue up to get their injections or their pills or whatever they need, so off they go back to the wild. So yeah, we don't try to interfere more than we have to. I think human interference can be too great. I think you need to keep it to a real minimum. I always call this place, our vets get really cross with me, I'm about to get shot by most of our vets, because I call this place really, we're a MASH unit. We're there to get them in, get them better as quickly as we can, and get them back out to the wild again. So we're really like a MASH unit, to be honest, and that works for us. We don't want to imprint animals, we don't want to humanise them, we don't want to habituate them, we don't do anything that's going to take their natural instincts away when they go back out to the wild. So that's what we do, don't we, Mr. Brayley?
We do indeed. Anthony's asked quite a topical question at the moment. How has bird flu affected operations at Wildlife Aid?
Luckily, it's not around here. The nearest place we have is a very, very tiny area up in Windsor, so we're well out of it. We actually have not only the AFA maps up all the time to see what avian flu is doing, but we have the TB maps up, so we know if that's moving. We're very cautious and very careful. So at Wildlife Aid, we don't take in water birds at the moment. There are a few centres who do, and we tend to pass them there. And anything that comes in, even a raptor, always goes into quarantine just for a few days to see if there's any disturbing symptoms. I mean, the trouble is...
We have a completely separate isolation unit now, so anything that is even slightly at risk goes in there, so it's not mixing with the population of animals that we have at the centre. And obviously we've got increased biosecurity there as well.
Yeah, we have to have that mainly for lorry. We set it up for lorry anyway, but it works for the birds as well. So yeah, we are very careful what we do. We keep them in isolation until we know that we're convinced that they're okay. And if we ever got nearer to an area that was affected, we'd increase our security measures to actually compensate for it. So yeah. Hopefully when the spring comes, when it gets a bit warmer, avian flu always seems to hit us in the winter months. Hopefully by the time we get through to sort of March, April, it should be sort of wending its way backwards again, so we should be fine. But we are very conscious of doing the right thing. We have to do the right thing. It's very important, not only for us, but for the animals as well.
Yes, and unfortunately there have been a few centres more in the north of the country that have been affected by bird flu, and unfortunately the results of that are absolutely catastrophic at that point. So we are trying to do everything we possibly can to avoid it, and unfortunately it's one of those, if we do get it, everything goes wrong, so we can't afford to even risk it for 1 second.
On perhaps a slightly more serious note, Lucy Kells has joined the chat. She, however, finds eating far more important than conversing on the chat. So
that's because you don't eat.
When she's finished eating her food, you might find her getting a bit more verbal or a bit more writable than she is at this very second.
Right, in terms of other patients that we've had in at the moment, as many of you can probably predict, one thing has been the predominant cause of general rescue operations here, and that is, of course, netting. So the most recent one is this little guy. This is a heron, wonderfully prehistoric looking bird, and unfortunately was tangled up in pond netting. The people from the house cut him free, but unfortunately he wasn't able to take off. So one of our rescuers went out, caught him up, brought him back, and a veterinary examination found this. Now, if you look in those little red circles, that's actually line that's still wrapped around the feathers, so it's holding all those primaries tight, and the bird actually can't extend its wings to fly. So we were able to cut that off. We needed to do a little reconditioning work with the feathers just to make sure that everything was fully back to normal, but amazingly that bird is now back out in the wild, hopefully avoiding any ponds and things like that in the future. But it's one of many netting cases that we've seen recently, hedgehogs and foxes and all of that lot. You may have seen one of the recent YouTube videos that we've put out, which is to do with a fox that was caught in netting, and I have to say it's probably one of the most tangled foxes we've seen in quite a long time. And this guy was quite a feisty little one, so he almost got you a few times, but luckily we were able to cut him out. It wasn't particularly tight, and we were able to release him on scene. But
not so much as a thank you, Laurie. He strode off
ran straight off.
No thank you from me. Often when we release something like that, they often turn back, obviously just to make, I think they turn back to make sure they're free of us, but it's always nice to think they're saying thank you. Obviously they're not, because, you know, as I get older and more senile, I like to think these things, but that's how the cookie crumbles.
And unfortunately, it's something that we're only going to see more of as we get into our orphan season, which we'll talk about in a bit. Especially foxes and hedgehogs and young badgers, to be honest, as well. We will get loads of them are caught in fences, caught in netting, specifically football netting. We see quite a lot of with foxes and hedgehogs. We'll also see chain link fencing, and we'll see them getting stuck between sort of slat fencing as well. They'll jump through it and get a leg stuck and slide down, and they tend to be stuck by a leg or a hip or something like that. So
here's a good one. So I'm going to interrupt you now because it's an interesting thing. So if you've got a big fence in your garden, I'm now going to rip up Laura's paperwork, but if you got a big fence in your garden, sometimes at the top of the fence it will sort of do that. There'll be a little gap at the top which decreases, and animals have this uncanny knack of getting their legs stuck in that bit. They slide down and it locks them out totally. So if you've got any fencing in your garden and you can see a gap between the post and the fence, just put something across the top, a bit of wire, a bit of wood, anything to stop that animal being able to slide its leg down into a narrowing gap. That would actually save a huge amount of wildlife. We go out to so many of those. In fact, we went out to one not that long ago, which was stuck in a fence as well. Same reason, the gap at the top, the gap narrows, animal 1,000,000 to 1 shot, but he gets its legs stuck down there. So just a thought, if you've got a gap at the fence, you don't need to fill the whole thing in, just make sure that top is level, put a bit of slatted wood across it, anything to stop that being a hazard to wildlife. So that's my tip of the day.
With the one that Simon was discussing that we went out to recently, it was actually so stuck between 2 concrete pillars that we had to get 2 people and a crowbar to lever enough room to get that leg out again. So please, if you do have gaps or fencing or netting or anything like that, lift it up. We recommend at least 30 centimetres or 1 foot, just off the ground. If you have a movable football goal, just lift it on top of chairs or something like that. Give them a nice safe passage underneath. If you have fruit netting over anything else, please try and use either really fine netting. The general rule is if you can get your finger through the netting, an animal can get stuck in it. So either use really fine netting, or please just remove it.
Ideally,
the damage
any netting above the ground,
huge.
Any netting, have a gap of at least 2 feet between the ground and the netting, and ideally, if you've got netting at all, check it every single day. It's really important. Laurie, shall we get I know I love Laurie's face now, because I'm going to say to Laurie, shall we get controversial? That always scares Laurie when I get controversial.
And we're off the air.
There's been UK. There's been a couple of programs recently about the hedgehog decline in population, and that in urban areas it's beginning to build again. I am slightly cynical. I'm 70. I'm nearly 70. Very horribly nearly
You are
70.
incredibly
Actually,
cynical.
Yeah, horribly near 70 too. I'm not convinced of the talk that's coming out. They're saying that hedgehogs in rural areas are still at risk. Hedgehog in urban areas are increasing populations. I'm not convinced, guys, and it's so hard in wildlife to measure any population. However good you are, however many people you have looking at it or working it out, it's nearly impossible. It's all guesswork. So what I do think is happening in the urban areas is that more people are seeing hedgehogs, because they're putting in sort of hedgehog walkways through, they're making holes in fences so they can go from one place to another. They're also feeding them a bit more than they did, and they're also taking more interest in them. I think the interest is a big thing. I think people didn't really look before, but COVID and so forth, and even a bit before, people have been looking for wildlife. So there's a possibility, let's put it this way, there's a possibility that urban hedgehogs are increasing, but they still have, I mean, the big problem we have, 95% of our rescues are to do with people, indirectly or directly. So it's roads, it's cars, it's poison, it's all the normal things, and that's 95%, probably 99% of the work we do. So that's not going to stop. That hasn't stopped. There's no less cars on the road. There's more roads, more cars. So I think it's people are just being kinder to hedgehogs, so they're seeing them more. I mean, I know somebody actually very well who has lived out in the same place for the last 50 years and sees hedgehogs once or twice every 2 or 3 years, because they don't come out. They're quite timid creatures. They get their own food. We shouldn't be feeding them too much. Occasionally, if they're not well, by all means put a bit of food out, but we don't want them to get dependent upon that food. We want them to find their own food. So in rural areas, they're saying the population's not doing so well. I personally don't believe that's changed. I think rural hedgehogs will always be here. I've said for many years, and Laurie will say this, and I'm probably going to be wrong, but I should be dead by the time it's proved. I believe urban population of hedgehogs will disappear and they will be extinct within about the next 30 or 40 years, whereas rural populations aren't too affected by roads. They're not too much in trouble. They just go and do what hedgehogs do. Obviously hedgehogs, they like hedges, hedgehogs, they scuffle on the ground, they get their insects, they get all this sort of thing. So hedges are really important, the edges of woodland. Anything like that where hedgehogs can scuffle for food and they can go and hibernate when they want to in the winter is a great place. Even your gardens, you can make them hedgehog friendly. Have the hole in your fence on all 2 sides, 3 sides, whatever, but put in the winter, get a big pile of leaves. When I say a big pile of leaves, probably at least 2 or 3 feet wide, at least 2 feet high. Then as a little trick, put a big black plastic bag over the top of those leaves and then put leaves on top. The reason for that is the wet that goes into it gets deflected by the plastic bag and they stay really nice and dry in the leaves. So leaves, sticks, anything, give them a nice little nest for the winter. Hedgehog boxes, if they're the right ones, are fine, but far better to give them something really natural. And it doesn't take up, it's going to take up a 3-foot space in your garden. That's all, guys. Be nice to hedgehogs. They're our most iconic, uncontroversial animal in the UK. Be nice to them. Population down, as we've said a million times, between 98 and 99% since the 1950s. So that's from 30 million down to 1 million. Some people say 500,000, which is even worse. But every single hedgehog matters. And if we can get them through to the next year, we actually worked out for every 100 hedgehogs we save and overwinter, so we get them back out in the spring, it actually creates a population of 35,000 hedgehogs within 10 years. And if you know the paperwork and the calculations that went into that, you will be flabbergasted, because it took us months and months to work it out. I'll shut up now, Laurie. You can have a go now, Laurie.
Well, whilst you've been speaking, we've had a whole load of donations come in. So thank you very, very much to everyone who has done. And to be honest, it's really interesting to see just the scope of where you guys are from. So Sam Art has donated £10 and has put, good work as always, thank you. Thank you very, very much. It's very kind. Uta has put €20 and has put, from a little hedgehog station in Germany. Thank you very much as well. That is very, very kind.
Laurie, we've actually had 10,000 huff. I've no idea what 10,000 huff is.
So huff is Hungarian florint.
I just worked it out.
Okay. How much is that worth in English?
Hang on.
Abby is working it out at the moment.
I just did it, but I can't.
She is here.
Abby is our resident blacked out calculator.
It's £23.18.
£23.18.
I mean,
So
every
thank you
single
very, very
pound
much.
helps. Every single pound we get helps. In fact, we did our marketing guy did an Amazon push the other week, and we all thought, oh, that's a waste of time, isn't it? What a waste of time. I don't know how many packages we had, but it's hundreds, and we've had over £10,000 worth of Amazon packages. So guys, anybody who contributed to that, fantastic. Thank you so much. It's so important. I mean, every single pound helps. Every donation helps, however it comes. And if it's Bacardi for me and malt whiskey for Laurie, even better.
So just to put things into a little bit of context, we've probably had deliveries over the past 4 or 5 days. This was the number of parcels we got on day 1. So this is entirely for the patients. It's a mixture of food, supplies, veterinary supplies, a whole lot of things that are absolutely vital for the running of the centre here, especially as we start to approach orphan season. And we've had this repeated day after day after day. So thank you all so much. We honestly could not do this without you. And your generosity really does help things get their second chance back in the wild. So a huge thank you to everyone who responded to that recent campaign. We do appreciate it.
So a couple of recent notes on the YouTube feed, Laurie, is it's just quite interesting. Hello from Phoenix, Arizona. Hello, Arizona. I'd love to go there one day. Hi, Abby in the dark. Well, that's sort of quite
Abby
normal.
is in the dark.
And Alice is a vampire. So,
She is indeed.
So what more can I say? We've hit the whole spectrum of what we like here at Wildlife Aid. Nuts, eccentric, but passionate. Passion's the word. If you're passionate and you love it, do it, guys. Do it, love it, and we're grateful for it. Thank you.
So So a few questions have actually come in over the past couple of minutes. Abby has been very kindly curating those and sticking those in a document. So Charlotte has asked, can we talk about hoglets? How can we improve their habitats in rural areas? It's really sad to see that their population has declined so rapidly.
We sort of hit that in a way. I mean, in rural areas we can't do a lot. I mean, if you own a rural or have access to a rural area, twig piles, log piles, leaf piles, as we said before, is absolutely fine. I mean, nature, people will not understand is nature is far, far cleverer and perceptive than mankind. Mankind's greedy, mean, and a lot of the things I can't say on air because Laurie will hit me, but nature gets it right. So if we just provide some habitat for hedgehogs, they will do the rest, they will find their food, they will do everything they need to do. Protect them, love them, take away the fences, take away the netting, take away all the hazards they come across, and they will thrive. Nature's got it right. Mankind just can't stop upsetting the whole balance.
The other thing, to be honest, with hedgehogs, especially as our gardens become more and more walled in, is these things, hedgehog highways. So if you do have a fence or anything like that around your garden, please cut a hole about the size of a CD, so I believe it's 13 centimetres in diameter. Cut that out of your fence and it will allow a hedgehog to pass through. They can walk over a mile each night and they do need to find each other to breed. So if you do have a fence, please leave a hole at the bottom, and if you're moving away you can actually get these signs or other similar ones that you can use to mark that to make sure no one covers it up, just so they get nice easy passage and can help to repopulate themselves.
I just wondered whether we could force Laurie's head through a hedgehog highway hole.
You struggle?
When it's all over I shall work. No, I will get it through, Laurie, trust me, I will get it through there. You'll never be the same again, but it'll go.
In small pieces.
So, Simon, somebody said, how do I donate? I don't see a donate button today. I don't know if we've got one on here, Laurie, but go to our website. There's donate buttons everywhere. There's things you can do. We would love donations. It's what keeps us going. I mean, two things keep us going. One is the money you give us from £1 upwards or from 2p upwards is great. But our volunteers, 400 volunteers, without whom we would not be functioning at all. Laurie, something's flashing. I know. I think. Is it Abby
Have you knocked
beeping?
one of your phones off?
It's Abby. No, my phone's off. This is my contact to Abby.
Disconnected.
I'm going to put it down, Abby. You
Okay.
ring me again.
Yeah.
Abby, ring me again.
Abby's disconnected. Hence.
I've lost Abby. Abby's gone
So-
in the darkness.
A few people have asked recently, how has the recent storm Eunice affected the patient intake?
To us, to be honest, down here in Surrey, where we is, not at all. I think, as far as I know, we had one patient in, an owl, which they think came out of a tree because a tree fell down and it was found on the side of the road. But that, to my knowledge, is the only one that's affected us down here. Up north, I just think it's pretty damned horrendous. I mean, I think a lot of badger sets will be underwater, so keep an eye out if you're up north. Any storms like that do affect wildlife dramatically. Wildlife actually is quite nousy. It knows if something's coming, and if you watch bird migrations or you watch tsunamis and things, the animals know long before we do that there's something going to go on, and they tend to get out of the area. But sometimes they get caught, sometimes they get stuck, so just keep an eye on that sort of thing. But for us down in Surrey, we haven't been too affected at all.
Tim has asked, is there a limit to how far you would travel for a rescue before you say that's too far?
Yeah, as long as I can go in the car and I don't have to walk anywhere, I'll go as far as you like. In serious words, we will travel about an hour to a rescue, and there's a reason for that. We'll come back to it in a minute. However, if it's a massive rescue that's very difficult, or something that we're very good at, or something that needs a lot of help, or something like a major oiling crisis, we will go as far as we need to go, so we can do that. But if you're travelling more than an hour, several things happen. So an animal's hit by the side of the road, whatever. We get a call. Somebody else might have also got the call. The animal might have got up and gone away. The animal might have died. Something else might happen. So we tend to travel maximum an hour, providing that people will stay with the animal. Because if it gets up and goes away and we're on the way, there's nothing more annoying. As Laurie found the other day when he went out to a badger that was RTA, I was looking at my phone thinking, oh, I don't want to go there. I'll let Laurie go to that one. And of course it ran away before he got there. So stay with the animal. We will go out. We will travel an hour certainly if necessary, but for bigger things or for more important things or for more dangerous things that we're equipped to handle, give us a call. If we can be there, we will.
The other thing is, in the south of England, we're actually quite lucky that there are an awful lot of wildlife rehabilitation centres around where we are, especially in Surrey, Sussex, Kent, things like that. So beyond that hour limit, there's usually a centre that's a lot closer. And for an animal that's been hit, time really is of the essence. Getting it in, getting it treated, getting it sorted. So if there is another centre that can get there in 10 minutes when it takes us an hour and a half, we're always going to try and pass it on to that other centre, just because it's so much better for the animal to get that treatment quickly, so it loses less blood, less damage from whatever injury it's in there, less time tangled up in netting, less chance of constriction wounds or breaks or anything like that. So that is probably one of the main reasons that we'll pass anything over an hour, unless it's something that we really need to go to. I believe you've actually gone to Pembrokeshire in South Wales for oiled seabirds before.
I have indeed, but I'm going to change the subject very quick because I've just seen it come up on the screen. Somebody said, do you sell the hedgehog signs? No, we don't. Personally, I think they're a waste of money. I'd rather you just cut a hole in your fence and give us a donation, because that would be far more sensible. And, you know, hedgehog sign is just to highlight it, but you don't need them. You don't need, the hedgehogs aren't going to read it. I promise you guys, the hedgehog is not going to read the sign. So cut a hole, send us a donation if you feel you haven't done enough, and that's good enough for me.
Yeah. These ones are actually from the British Hedgehog Preservation Society, but there are also an awful lot of more sustainable ones, because unfortunately these are plastic as well, which we want to try and avoid if possible.
Don't want sign. What a waste of money, Mr. Brady. Cut a hole in your fence.
If you do want anything, there's, for example, there's a company called A Blackbird Sings. They do the whole thing out of metal. It's all recycled, nice and sustainable. If you do want to do that, please research the most sustainable methods to do so.
Laurie, are you watching me, Laurie?
Oh,
don't waste money on signs. Help wildlife. Do what you need to do. Don't waste money buying a sign. See, no swearing.
Keep it clean.
Keep it clean. That's me.
So a few more comments on Facebook. Whisker Haven has asked, can a fox catch mange after it's caught it once?
Yes, they can get mange more than once. It's an endemic, it's a mite, and yeah, it can go back on the body numerous times, as I have found out as well.
You've had mange more than once.
I just had a text, Laurie, from Louise Millington, who you and I know who it is, saying, so grumpy. Louise, I'm not grumpy. I'm just realistic, though a touch cynical at my age. And your husband, Louise, is probably worse than me. But never mind. So we won't divulge that celebrity, particularly at this stage. Hi, Louise. Hello. Nice I'm here. Right, what else we got, Laurie?
Patty has asked, what do you do if you find a wild animal that needs care, but you don't know where your nearest wildlife rescue is? This is quite a nice topical one.
I think the answer to that, to be honest, is go to Google, look up your nearest wildlife hospital.
So the best way to do that is actually a website.
Can I finish what I'm saying, Laurie, please? And then you can have a word in a minute.
If you get it right, then you can.
He's getting worse. I will get it right. So go to Google, have a look. If you find a wildlife hospital near you, ring them. You can always ring us. But Laurie now, because he's itching, look, his little body's itching to tell you where you can find where there might be a wildlife hospital. Laurie, it's all yours.
So there's actually an initiative that's run by another wildlife rescue, and it's called Help Wildlife. So www.helpwildlife.co.uk. On there you can actually enter your location, and it will give you a full list of the wildlife rescues in your area, including their contact details and the animals that they will help. So if you have found a fox or a badger or anything like that, you can look down there, find the nearest one that will help the species that you have concerns about, and you can phone them. If they don't answer or they're unable to help for any reason, we can then move further and further down that list until we find something. It's an absolutely fantastic resource. We've used it quite a lot as well, because we do get calls from out of our area, even 2, 3, 4 hours drive away from that, and our reception teams use it all the time to look up local wildlife rescues. So if you're not sure where your nearest wildlife rescue is, please take a look. Keep the number in your phone in case of emergencies, and just give them a ring if you find anything in need of help.
I'd just like to say to Anthony, you are watching because we know you are. I've just seen your comment. Simon's not grumpy. He's old.
He's both.
I think, Anthony, that's going to cost you at least a 20 quid donation for saying something so unkind to a poor, sensitive old man, like a young man like me.
So Moon on YouTube has just asked, do you do feather imping? So yes, we do. Feather imping, for those of you who don't know, is a process where effectively you replace the feathers on a bird's wing. So it's something that started off in the falconry side of things, but it's something that is becoming more and more common in the rehabilitation thing. And what
the rehabilitation thing,
I
Laurie.
completely forgot the word. I'm very tired tonight.
It's gone. Laurie's gone. He's lost the plot, Laurie. I'm sorry, guys. You know, I might be old, but I haven't lost the plot as badly as Laurie has. Go on, off you go.
So what we will often see, if a bird has been hit by a car, it's grounded for any prolonged period of time, there will be extensive feather damage to what we call the primary feathers, the main flight feathers on a bird's wing. And if they are damaged, the bird cannot fly, cannot gain lift. They do regrow, they'll molt and regrow, but some of those birds can take up to a year for that full molt cycle to go back round. And during that time, the stress of captivity will often become too much, and they'll either injure themselves further or can die just from the stress. So what you do with imping is you'll cut the feather right up at the top of the shaft, and you will replace that with a feather from a donor bird, so a bird that sadly has been found deceased or has died in care. We do keep a lot of those feathers. Has to be from not only the same species but the same gender as well. A lot of them are what's called sexually dimorphic, so the males and females will look very different in terms of coloration, and we want to make sure when they go back they have the best chance and they're not suddenly confused for the wrong gender. So what we tend to do is we'll cut those feathers on an angle. We'll do the same on the donor wing, and then we join them using a wooden skewer and some glue. It's all perfectly environmentally friendly. Put that in there. That's all set fine, and to be honest, they can be up and flying the next day after that. It gets them back to the wild.
Very immediate.
It will get them back to the wild, and the feathers will molt naturally because you've only cut the feather, you haven't plucked it out. They will molt naturally because it's a wooden skewer, going to have no effect on the environment, and those feathers will regrow, and within a year that bird will be entirely back to normal, and it gets them back out just to make sure they have that stress minimised as much as possible. So yes,
Laurie,
we do imping.
Laurie, you've just been accused of trolling me. That was
I'm always trolling you.
That's the first thing that really
My
worried me.
existence is trolling.
And there was something else. It's got. I tell you, the comments are coming in so fast. I can't even keep up with. Laurie, be nice to Simon. I want to give Simon a hug. So Laurie's taken over from me. Laurie thinks I'm too old. Laurie thinks I'm past it. I haven't got it anymore. But what you got to remember, Laurie did a rescue yesterday. I don't like going up heights anymore. He was 30 feet up a ladder. Laurie, if I get really hacked off with you, I shall just kick the bottom of the ladder when you're up 30 feet.
It was very wobbly. So this is the rescue Simon's actually talking about. So we had a pigeon caught in pigeon-proof netting at the top of this shop. This video is actually coming out very, very soon on that one. So as you can see from here, there's this really, really fine netting covering the top. Unfortunately, there was a hole in it. Pigeons could get in, and as they tried to get out, they would just get stuck. So we'll have more on that one coming up, but please, if you do have that netting, as we said before, please remove it because it can cause so much damage. That pigeon that you see in the photo now is actually currently back at the centre because it was caught upside down with its legs sticking out behind it. So it needs a little bit of R&R just to get back on its feet. There was another bird which we were able to release on scene, but that one is currently recovering with us and hopefully will go back before too long.
That's not nearly as bad as the accident's going to become Laurie when he upsets me too much. His foot won't be stuck up behind him, his head will be through a ladder which will fall to the ground at speed.
I've long said that Simon is going to be the death of me, I'm just not quite sure how.
Mr. Brayley, you're in so much trouble, you know. I tell you, my life already. It's a big problem. I'm only looking at YouTube feed, and then coming on Facebook that we should be looking at. Because I know Facebook's quite active.
Quite a lot is coming in on Facebook. Patty is actually asked an interesting question. Is it true that the RSPCA put down animals such as bunnies and hedgehogs without treating them?
Not that I'm aware. I mean, the inspectors that we have round us are stunning. I won't praise them too much because their heads will get too big. But in Surrey, we've got 3 brilliant inspectors who we work with all the time. I love them to bits. Don't tell one of them that I love him, because he'll start to ask me for money, and that will really worry me. No, they're really good. RSPCA don't put anything down they don't have to.
It's a very common misconception that unfortunately we see
perhaps a little bit more strict than us, because they have so many more things to deal with. So we're a bit more, we'll go a little bit further than them probably at times, but that's an argument I can have with the inspectors when the time comes. But no, they don't, guys. They care. Trust me, the inspectors around us care as much as we do, and they're brilliant. And in fact, I ring one of them quite regularly when he's off duty, out of hours, because I looked at my watch. It was 12:30 in the morning. I thought, I really don't want to get up. It's -1. I'm going to stay in bed. I'll ring him. So I ring him, who should remain nameless, and he's always very jovial, which always makes me. I think he's drunk actually most of the time. But he will go out.
True. That's
he will go out and do rescues for us. He's an absolute star. So, LH, you know who you are.
He's already been named in the chat, so thank you very much, Lewis.
Oh, well, great. That's it. That's done that one in. He'll now get the sack from the RSPCA. You realise that, don't you?
But there's an awful lot of misinformation about the RSPCA that is out there. We do see an awful lot of time. Don't call the RSPCA, they'll just put it down. Obviously, we can't speak for other areas, but certainly in our area, if the RSPCA are called out to a fox, a badger, anything that they can't specifically take care of at one of their own wildlife centres, I believe they've got 2. They've got Stapley Grange and Mallee Dams, I believe, are their 2 wildlife centres.
Loads more, Laurie. Loads more centres than that.
Loads
just
more,
a few.
They will actually bring them straight to a wildlife rescue like us. We work with the RSPCA all the time. The inspectors there are super keen to know exactly what's going on, and many of them are really happy to release the animal back to that location. So if you do have an animal that is injured, you can't contact your local wildlife centre or anything like that. Please, please, please do not be afraid to contact the RSPCA, because they will try and help. We're all in the same game, and they will try and do their best to help that animal, and if they can't do it, they'll send it off to another rescue who can.
Or if they ring us. I mean, we do, it works both ways. I mean, we ring them, they ring us, we get it together. I mean, there's rescues we've done jointly, because, we did one, in fact, we did one a while ago, those badgers, which you actually saw on that beginning video, which was with Lewis, having now been named, so he's going to get all the fan mail now. I won't get any more fan mail, it'll be Lewis who gets it. But no, we work closely together, we work very well together, and Louise has just said that I'm sensitive. Would you agree with that, Laurie, that I'm sensitive? Would you agree with that at this point in time?
Comment.
I don't know who she comes up as. I've been trying to find her on here and I can't find her, so I don't know what Louise's YouTube nickname, whatever you call it, is. I shall work it out in the end.
It's quite obvious, it's Louise Millington.
Oh, is it? Oh God, I'll just go and have another drink. I'll be fine, guys. That's fine with me. Right, what else we got, Laurie?
So, going back to a couple of the rescues and patients and things that we have found recently, and speaking of the RSPCA, is this guy. So this fox was brought into us by one of the local RSPCA AROs, their animal rescue officers, and unfortunately it had quite the journey. It managed to fall through a roof and then break through a window before he was able to be contained, and unfortunately hadn't come out of that completely unscathed and had suffered a severed tendon to one leg, which, as any of you who've had tendon damage will know, is horrible. They can no longer walk, and it's not something, because of the tension involved in that, it's not something that can fix naturally. Luckily, one of our vets, Sarah, actually came in and sutured everything back up, made sure that everything was fully connected. Had quite a lot of R&R at the centre, but we're pleased to say he's now able to walk perfectly normally, and recently was also returned back to the wild. I believe it was the RSPCA officer who caught him in the first place that released him back to the wild. So yes, this guy is able to go back, and tendon damage is something that can be fixed, which I'm delighted to hear.
So Phoenix Solutions, Laurie, have just sent us £17.99. Phoenix Solutions, a chap called Danny, he's a really lovely guy. I shouldn't say that in front of him, but I mean, he just charges far too much money. And all his sent us is £17.99. If I showed you the invoices that he sent us over the last 9 months, you'd realise why I'm laughing. So, if you want to get real, Phoenix Solutions, if you want to get real, let's see a real big donation coming. Make Simon happy, man. No, they're very good. They do all our CCTV, they do all our electrics, and we give them a hard time. he actually has said to me I'm the biggest pain in the you-know-what that he's ever worked with.
Oh, that's
But
100% accurate.
things here are so immediate. We need cameras up. If we lose a camera on a particular area, it's really vital to us to get it back up again, because we don't want an animal to suffer unnecessarily. And I do tend to get on the phone very quickly. Sometimes he does it. Sometimes he just pretends he's not there. I know, young man, that you pretend you're not there. They're very good to us, but this place relies on absolute, not only security, but vision of what we're seeing. I mean, I've got over on this side of me now, I've got 60 screens that look at all the pens, so if any animal's in trouble I can see it, and if one of those goes down, it only needs to be down 5 minutes and we've lost an animal, which is why it's so important to us. So Danny, I don't want you to go to bed tonight crying. I just want you to get everything I want done on my list done very quickly.
It's not just us, it's actually a lot of wildlife rescues. Because we work with wild animals who really don't want to see humans, it makes them either incredibly stressed or, to be honest, in some cases quite aggressive. If you walk in there, they really don't want you in there. So we keep monitoring them with CCTV. We can keep an eye on what they're doing. We can see their natural behaviours when they don't have that stress of a human watching them. We can rewind that to see what's going on overnight, and pretty much every pen that we have at the centre and every pen we'll have at the new centre, which we'll come to in a minute, will have and do have CCTV in them. So it's a hugely important tool for us, and thank you very much to Danny and the guys for keeping that up and running, because it's quite a big operation.
I think we were actually one of the first centres to get CCTV everywhere. I think a lot of people have copied us over the years. And I'm looking at 64 screens. As I look to my right hand side, there's 64 screens up there. I can see all the animals. I can see if there's a problem in the x-ray room. I can see if there's a problem in the treatment room. We can monitor everything all the time, and the nice thing about it is if an animal's in trouble, we can go in and deal with it. If it's not in trouble, we just stay back, stay out, and don't stress the animal out. So that's what we're all about, and that's what Phoenix Solutions make possible for us, Laurie. I think we should do an advert for them.
On a bit of a segue, 20 acres, so what we call the Wildlife Aid Centre, which is
a segue, Laurie?
Yes.
Do you want to call it a
French
segue?
way, not the weird two-wheeled thing.
I'm worried about Laurie. I've been worried
does.
about Laurie for a long time. I speak to his mum regularly about Laurie. I worry about him a lot. So you go off in your little segue, Laurie. Off you go.
So, the new centre, I know a lot of you have been asking how we're doing on that and what's the progress on that. So we'd just like to quickly show a little video that we've put together that shows what has happened so far, and then Simon can talk a bit further about what's happened since this was made and what's happening in the future.
So that was pretty pictures of our new site. It's actually developed even more since then. In fact, I'm looking, I don't know if I can do this. Laurie, this is really going to upset Laurie now because I'm going to move my camera.
Oh, look how messy your office is.
Look, my office is, I don't know, can you see this? I know you can't. Oh, yes, you can.
Yes, you can. So this is the live camera. This
is the live camera that Phoenix have made possible for us today because they mucked it up yesterday. And in the middle pond, there's at least 50 Canada geese spending the night. So yes, I'm not too happy about that, but we love all wildlife, don't we, Laurie? 50 Canada geese. We actually planted about 4,000 quid worth of aquatic plants on all the ponds this spring. I think the Canada geese have had about 40% of them, which is really annoying, which means we're going to have to plant a whole load more coming up in March and April. But we're basically planting this out. The things, obviously, with a site like this that we're developing, not only for us, but for the wildlife, it's going to be our own little wildlife corridor. It's important to get all the habitat and everything there. So we're planting hedgerows, we're planting woodland, we're planting copses. We're going to put aquatic plants, I should say, all around the ponds. So this is an ongoing process. And if you plant a hedge today, it's not going to be anything really for 5 years. So we're getting all that in now. So we're spending a huge amount of money before we even start the buildings to make the site beautiful and to get wildlife into it. Having said that, within about a week of our finishing the ponds, Laurie was very upset because I saw it and he didn't. There was a kingfisher sitting on one of the outlet pipes, which I was stunning. I mean, they're such
the one
beautiful
time
creatures.
No one has a camera down there.
It.
We actually have a camera that's in the car at all times in case we do have anything like that, and we missed it.
So that was good. So no, I mean, wildlife is already going there. We've got egrets, we've got swans, we've got Canada geese by the too many. We've got deer, we've got badgers, we've got foxes. If we do ever have to PTS a deer, and we don't need it at the centre here because we try to feed animals back into the food chain so it's not a waste for them or for nature, we put a
obviously
deer down there.
Depending on what medications they have.
If they have no medications and we just put it to sleep a particular way, we put them down there, and it's amazing to see. We had 3 foxes on a deer carcass we put down there a while ago. So we try to keep the food chain going. We try to undo all man's damage, as we always do, and that's a bit of a long thing to do. But it's a site that's developing. As I say, we've got, I mean, the whole site when it's finished will be well over £10 million. So if anybody knows any oligarchs, I shouldn't say that at the moment, should I, with the Ukraine situation? Let's lay off that
Moving on.
So if anybody knows anybody very wealthy who could help us in any way, shape or form, or know anybody who might be able to help us, please give us a call, because this is 10 million quid in this climate, more than any time before actually, is massive. We will build this new centre. I refuse to die until this new centre is built. Now that's really scared Laurie, because that means I'm going to live to about 120. And Laurie will, he'll never sit in my seat. My seat's still mine.
I don't want to sit in your seat. Have you seen the mess around there? You have paperwork from about 1986.
I haven't. Look, my site's wonderful. Look at my site. Look at it.
I'm so sorry, Myra.
Look, it's so beautiful. Myra cleared it out once, and then she gave up and had a heart attack. Look at it. Look, this is my seat. Okay, I'm coming back here now. So guys, it's a big project. It is our legacy project. It is our IDOT, if you like, which is I Do One Thing. Anybody who wants to know more about I Do One Thing, please send Doug an email. Doug's our engagement officer for IDOT. We wanted to go all over the world because just one thing done. I'm going to go into my normal blurb now, Laurie. People think that we can't do anything to help the environment. It's a massive thing. It's huge. It's governments, it's corporates, whatever. But if everybody did one thing a day, just in the UK, that would be 200. I've forgotten. No, 23 billion. That would be 23.
Would you like Abby to do this spiel?
24 billion actions a year. So if we all do one thing, it will make a massive difference. To be honest, pick up a bit of litter. It's going to save wildlife. Pick up dangerous things. It all helps wildlife. Save water, save everything. Let's save the planet, guys, because there's nobody else going to save it, and we're going to let it go because we, the human race, are a bit stupid. Sorry, guys, but we are a bit stupid.
So
Laurie, you've got 1 minute.
That have come in, so we're just trying to address as many of those as we possibly can. Just to quickly clarify, if any of you guys do want more information on our IDOT, our I Do One Thing project, please email Douglas. He's actually been on one of these live streams. It's idot@wildlifeaid.org.uk. So IDOT@wildlifeaid.org.uk, and he will be in touch.
Schools, groups, corporates, anyone can join IDOT. So please get in touch with Douglas. He will support you, help you, do what you've got to do. But iDot is a great, great scheme, and Douglas is there just for you.
A few people have been asking, can we possibly get any of those new site cameras on the webcams? We are working on it. Please watch.
We would,
this
Laurie,
space on that.
we would get them on the webcams if a certain company made it possible. I'm not going to say anything. Danny, love you, love you. Just remember, Danny, I haven't paid your last invoice, so don't get upset with me yet.
Silvershade has asked, here's a question, have you guys ever rescued an insect? Yes, we have. Actually, a couple of years ago we had a stag beetle, I believe it was a male stag beetle, that had a cracked wing carapace that our vets actually glued back together and was able to be released. We've also had dragonflies and damselflies that have been treated, and I believe they were released on your garden pond. Those, but yes, we have had insects in the past. If we can try, we will. Obviously, there are legal restrictions to some animals, and some are just very, very difficult. For example, fish, we just don't have the facilities to do that. Though we have done a goldfish, I believe, in the past that was dropped in someone's garden. But a few people have been asking, are there any opportunities for young people to try working with us? So that's, again, to use your favourite word, Simon, a nice segue into volunteering. So yes, we are always looking for new volunteers in the same way that a lot of other centres are looking for volunteers if you happen to live locally to them. Unfortunately, for insurance reasons, we do have a minimum age of 18, so you need to be 18 at the lowest end.
Unless you're on a school work experience, and then it can be 16. But our insurance is very strict. We have to be very careful. You know, things can get dodgy here. I mean, I've been bitten and eaten and clawed and all sorts of things. Laurie will smile because I've got attacked by him. So we do have to be careful. We have to protect the volunteers. And so 16 if you're work experience for short term, 18 for long term. But that doesn't stop the young people out there. You know, do a fundraising thing for us. Do a one-off, do a birthday thing, do anything, any fundraising. You send us 2 shillings. Oh, that makes me very old.
2 shillings?
2 shillings. 10p. 10p to you who don't remember 2 shillings. Anything helps, guys. So fundraising is brilliant, and spreading the word about iDot. Even spreading the word, telling your school about iDot, telling them what they can do to help wildlife, to help the planet, would be absolutely amazing. So there's so many things you can do to help us in all sorts of ways.
So a couple of last things that we'll go through. We just want to also say, because we've been offline for a little bit of time, a huge thank you to Sally, our vet, and a huge happy birthday as well, because we've managed to miss that one. And she will kill me for mentioning it in this, but happy birthday to you, Sally, happy belated birthday. And thank you to everyone who left very, very kind messages on our social media to Sally. She has actually read and I believe replied to pretty much every one of those. And the other thing that a lot of people have been asking for is, of course, the photo book. Yes, that is going ahead, and this isn't the final one, but as a quick teaser, we do have
Laurie
a
is
copy
so
of
full
a
of
recent one here.
Laurie is so full of it. It's a brilliant book. We can't sell it because it costs Laurie, I think, 60 or 70 quid. It costs a fortune. But I mean, his pictures are stunning. I'm only going to say this once because his head will get too big.
I steal them all from
and
Simon.
It won't fit through the Hedgehog picture. But no, it's a brilliant book. So we are going to do, and we still promise to do one with some writing and some pictures, but they are very good. Luckily, you can't see much of that because it's burning out really badly, Laurie. So, you know, it's soft focus like all Laurie's pictures are. But no, you know, we will get one out there sometime. So Sally's off this week. She's actually having a week off. It's the only week we let her take off because it's going to get busy very soon. So Sally, if you're watching this, you're fired anyway because you're supposed to be having a week off. We've got a new vet. We've got a new vet starting on Tuesday. A new vet called Miriam who's starting with us on Tuesday. Hopefully that will help Sally's workload, and obviously going to orphan season, we need all the vets we can get. We always need volunteer vets. If you want to come and volunteer, if you're a vet or a vet nurse, please, please, please get in touch with us because we're always open to any of that. It gives Sally a bit of a break. We'll give Miriam a bit of a break. It will give the vet nurse a bit of a break, and we can also teach you what you can do back at your own vet practice. So please, please don't be shy of coming forward. I'm never shy of coming forward, am I, Laurie?
No. If
And
there's one thing you're not, it's shy. I'll give you that.
We're now 4 minutes into overtime, Laurie, and you know these
are
football
indeed,
matches.
and we do need to wrap up very soon. We'll just try and get through as many of the last bits as possible. Cecil Levies just asked, what do you shoot with, Laurie? So I'm going to alienate a good, probably 3/4 of our audience here. I shoot with Nikon cameras. I have a Nikon D810 and a 500mm and a 300mm are the two that I mainly use. If you want any more, if you Google my name, because I'm point blank refusing to give my website out. If you Google my name, you'll be able to find the full list of kit on there. I own far too much of it. How is the Hedgehog with a strimmer injury? I'm not entirely sure at the moment on that one. We have had a Hedgehog with a strimmer wound. We do get these quite a lot in the summer. It's a lot rarer in the winter to get animals hit with strimmers, but we have had one that had quite a nasty wound from a strimmer. We've had a couple recently. I'm honestly, I'll hold my hands up, I'm not sure. That tends to be up with the vet team.
I think he's doing alright.
Abby said thinks he's doing alright at the moment from the last time we checked, but we would have to check with the vet team. So if that's a patient you brought in, please drop us an email, updates@wildlife.org.uk, and one of the team can get back to you with the latest information.
Cool. Now you're in injury time and overtime now, Laurie. Overtime,
we
injury
are
time.
Indeed. And
so you've got to wind up. Laurie, you've got to wind it up now. Look, those little eyes.
Before we go, I just want to say a huge thank you to every single one of you who has donated via the YouTube feature, and to every one of you who's gone onto the website to donate as well. It is absolutely amazing. We say this every single time we do one of these, but we're not funded by the government or anything like that. We can only do what we do thanks to your generosity. So every single thing that you do and that you give to us goes straight to the animals and makes a massive difference. So thank you very much.
So there's Laurie's list of what we had to talk about tonight. We've hit about a third of it. We've missed
We never
the rest.
hit all of it.
We will promise to be back in a month's time.
March 30th.
I'm still here, and Laurie's not. If Laurie ever hosts it single, you know that I've gone. That's the end of Sai. Sai's gone. There we are. I thought you were doing another sign then. I was really worried.
I did think it looked like that.
I was really worried. So, honestly, guys, all of you, thank you for watching. Spread the word. Get everybody looking at iDot. Get everybody giving us money for the new centre. And I know there's a particular bit of kit that Alice particularly wants at the moment, which is a large vivarium, I think you call them.
Yeah.
A massive
Alice is looking for a large glass vivarium. Alice is one of our main sort of rodent feeders. We've had quite a few, but obviously to take those through, you need quite a large specialist tank to give them the space that they need before they can go back out to the wild. So if anyone
I think
does
it costs
have
about
a
10
large,
million pounds, Laurie. I think it costs about 10 million pounds, that large
I'm
vivarium.
fairly sure you're speaking out of your...
Careful, Laurie, careful. We're live on air as we speak.
So
guys,
if anyone does have something and wants to very kindly donate it, please just drop us an email, so mail@wildlifeaid.org.uk, and we would be greatly appreciative if you can. So Alice will check that email.
and the last comment we've had here, it says, thank you, superheroes. I'm going to cross off the S. And, you know, I appreciate being a superhero. We can't have Laurie being the same thing. So I'm going to say good night.
I don't suit Kate.
Laurie, take us away in 5 seconds.
So thank you so much, as we all say, to all of you for your support, liking, commenting, sharing, subscribing, everything that you do. We could not do this without you, and the work that we do is only possible thanks to your help. So huge thank you. We will see you on March the 30th, hopefully sooner, with videos coming back to the channel after a bit of a delay. And we wish you the very best for the next month, and we will see you very soon.
God bless you all.